UFC 303 has just concluded, and well, as you guys can see, I am in a different environment than normal. I am currently in South America. I'm going around on a seminar tour teaching people Aikido. So that's what I'm currently doing right now, but I was able to catch the fights, and man, was it a heartbreaker this weekend. It was just a heartbreaker all around, mainly because for those who follow my parlay videos, tonight it didn't go very well. Tonight it did not go very well, and that's putting it lightly. We busted the parlay on the very first fight of the night, and you know what? It's almost hard to be upset about it because it was Ricky Simón versus what was his name? Vinicius Oliveira. Now, the reason why I can't really be mad at this fight is when you look back at Vinicius' first fight in the UFC, it was his debut. The only other fight he's had apart from this one, he was throwing a lot of single shots. He was staying in the pocket, getting tagged quite a few times. He was getting taken down and controlled fairly easily against an opponent who, on paper was not to the same level as Ricky Simón, but, well, fuck, he cleaned it all up. I mean, he really did. He was throwing really good combinations. He was maintaining distance well. His takedown defense was really good. Despite really hurting his own leg, kicking Simón in the shin, he hung in there and was able to get the win. You know what I mean? And it hurts, but it's difficult to be mad at that. Now, the second fight we got wrong on the parlay, we only got 2 fights wrong on the parlay, was Anthony Smith. Now, that fight was a fucking disgrace. I don't know what Anthony Smith was doing out there. That was so poor. I mean, I really don't think there's much debate here. You go back and you do the film study on Roman Dolidze and Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith is the way cleaner boxer. There was none of it there in this fight. There was none of it. Anthony Smith was just marching forward, throwing leg kicks, and then winging these huge, wild shots. He had no setup, no straight shots down the middle, not even a jab. To get outboxed by Roman Dolidze, that is just so goddamn embarrassing. I mean, look, I understand. Roman's jiu-jitsu is next level. I mean, he's really, really high level on the ground. To me, that was where he was going to beat Anthony Smith. And I thought the odds of him getting him to the ground was going to be pretty small given the fact that Roman's going to be a lot smaller than Anthony Smith, moving up on such short notice to 205. But Anthony Smith, he looked fucking fat. He looked hefty in there. He clearly had a bit of a belly. I mean, Dolidze was the one who took this fight on a week's notice. Now, I get Anthony Smith took it on short notice too, but not nearly as short as Roman did. And it was it was bad. That performance was bad. That was horrible. That was really, really, there's no excuse there. There is no excuse at all. That was fucking horse shit. That was horse shit. Right? I forgive Ricky Simón's performance. Ricky Simón's performance wasn't great, but at least Vinicius just really did clean up his game and fought a super good fight. Anthony Smith just didn't. He needs to retire. He should not be in there. I mean, that was so ungodly atrocious. The worst part was when he had Smith turtled up against the fence. Dolidze wasn't even controlling him. He didn't even have a body lock, didn't even have a single hook in, nothing. He was not controlling Anthony Smith's legs at all. And Smith chose to stay there and just cover up instead of standing back up. It was a goddamn disgrace. It was a disgrace. In every sense of the word. That was, I don't know. I don't even know what to say. That was so fucking bad. Anthony Smith just, I mean, oh my God. I mean, Roman Dolidze is known for kind of going at you like a bit of a brute. You know what I mean? Heavy shots, big swings, but he doesn't really set it up well. And Anthony Smith, look, there's a lot you can criticize him for. But outside of this fight, he typically does such a good job of keeping up a high guard, fighting intelligently, throwing good shots right down the middle, setting it up. None of that was there tonight. None of it was there tonight. And honestly, the reason why I'm so upset is because at the end of the day, it's on me. At the end of the day, it's on me. I mean, I told you guys to bet on Anthony Smith. I really believed in him in this matchup. He was the bigger opponent. He, on paper, I know, how ironic, but on paper, should have been the way better boxer, and it was fucking atrocious. It just, none of it was there. Anthony Smith needs to retire. Anthony Smith is a dead fucking plow horse that needs to be put to shame. He is a plow horse that has clearly injured one of his fucking legs and needs to be shot by whatever farmer owns him. All right. Apart from that, the fight I was most nervous of course, was Michael Venom Page versus Ian Garry. And the reason why I was so nervous about it was because, I made a video saying Michael Venom Page was going to knock out Ian Garry. Well, I said I thought he was going to knock him out. But at the end of the day, what that video stemmed from to me was I could not believe the sheer amount of people who were completely convinced that Ian Garry was going to go out there and just outpoint MVP. I was seeing so many people on Reddit, so many YouTube comments just being like, yeah, unfortunately Ian Garry's probably just going to stay on the outside and, win a boring decision. He's just, stay on the outside, outpoint MVP, no big deal. And I was just like, what? Nobody has ever done that to that karate blitz style. Nobody has ever done that against somebody as high level as Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, MVP. I mean, these guys are so fast, so unorthodox, and just so deadly. Nobody stands and goes tit for tat with these guys. It does not exist. And to me, I didn't think Ian Garry was capable of doing it. And from what we saw of the fight, he really wasn't. He turned into a wrestler very, very quickly. Ian Garry is known for his speed. He likes to strike just outside the pocket. You look up any Ian Garry fight he's ever had, it's the exact same thing. A shorter opponent is plodding forward, trying to get on the inside, while Ian Garry just stays just out of range and just pot shots him from just outside the pocket. That's not going to work against MVP because he's standing essentially 2 arm lengths away from you. And his ability to explode into the pocket and come out again, it is completely unparalleled. And it is so insanely hard to build the timing for something like that when you've never even, you cannot find sparring partners to replicate this kind of style. And if you can't do it, it's so hard to have the muscle memory, to have the timing down for someone blitzing in on you. And, Ian Garry had a problem on the feet. That is for sure. The thing, though, that I was so impressed with Ian Garry was just his grappling. We've never really seen him have to use his grappling before, but, he's been putting in a ton of work with ytmmache. He trains down at Shoot the Box, and his top pressure was really, really good. Now, I'm sure MVP is kicking himself a little bit from where he got taken down in the first round because he kind of lunged in with a high kick. It just wasn't there. Ian caught the kick, but he didn't need to get his head off the center line. He didn't even need to really evade the kick. It was never going to reach him. It just was not a good attempt from MVP, and I'm sure he's kicking himself for it. But once Ian got on top, he had really good top pressure, good shoulder pressure, and the way he would use his head positioning to prevent MVP from reaching back around and grabbing a whizzer. See, if MVP from here was able to reach back, grab the whizzer, Garry would not have been able to take his back. But because of his head positioning, he couldn't do it. MVP was forced to turtle, and Ian slid his hooks right in. But the second round is where the gap between them really started to show. The way MVP is just constantly on the outside, feinting entries. You don't know when he's coming in. It's really difficult to read, and he was able to rock Ian pretty badly. And like I said, I could not believe so many people were of the mind that Ian Garry was just going to go tit for tat with MVP. There's no way. He turned into a wrestler real quick, and honestly, I'm thoroughly impressed because Ian Garry, he wins the first round, clearly loses the second. Now, a lot of people are claiming robbery. They're claiming that MVP won the third round. I don't know. Ian Garry at the end did sort of take Venom Page's back. The problem is, though, he didn't have both hooks in. He got both hooks in briefly, but for the most part, he was kind of hanging off the top. He was very high. MVP was doing a good job tripoding to make Garry fall off the top. He never quite did, but point is, he never had both his hooks in. He had one hook in, and then he had a bit of a lock on the back of MVP's hip, kind of holding himself there. This judging criteria does not specify what exactly it means to fully take someone's back, to fully mount. At the end of the day, what the judging criteria is meant to, what the judges are looking at is who got closer to potentially ending the fight. That's what they're supposed to look at. Did Ian Garry really get there from his back take? Not really. But did MVP get there from being on top from full guard? Not really either. To be honest, it seems like both of those kind of just cancel out. And when you look on the feet, MVP did overall do more. But, I mean, was it a robbery? I don't know. I wouldn't say so. The most important thing we've learned from this fight is people have got to put respect on MVP's name. If you are kickboxing with him, you're going to lose. I mean, you're going to have to grapple with him. You're going to have to smash him up against the fence, sort of akin to what Shavkat did to Wonderboy. The style, it's too weird. It's too different. And frankly, I don't think anybody in the welterweight division can stand with Michael Venom Page and come out on top. I don't believe it's possible. And then we move on to the main event, Alex Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka. And this was another one. I saw a lot of people picking Jiri to win. And one thing I was seeing a lot of people say is that they felt like Pereira was chinny. This is something that I feel like I've heard about him for a long, long time. I don't know where it comes from. I mean, what do they mean? I mean, what are they talking about? When has he been chinny? I mean, the one time he got knocked out by Adesanya, where Adesanya timed a overhand cleanly from playing possum, was at the time that Adesanya had rocked Pereira all the way down at 185, where he was cutting a ton of weight. I mean, apart from that, where and when has he been chinny? I do not understand that comparison. And, you know, this fight was not nearly as close as the first one. And I think the main reason for that was Pereira was willing to be a lot more offensive in this fight. If you go back and you look at the first fight, you know, a lot of people were talking about how Jiri won the first round and he was winning the second round up until he got knocked out, which, you know, I suppose that is technically true. But at the end of the day, Jiri was landing some good, you know, he was connecting with Pereira on the end of some of his shots well, but he was taking a lot of punishment to his calf. A lot. And both calves. I mean, he was just progressively getting more and more and more and more in critical danger until eventually he had to bum rush him because he could not go all 5 rounds with that much damage being absorbed to his legs. It could not happen. But, you know, because of that, Pereira was doing a lot of backing up, a lot of evading, and I think the best shot Jiri landed of that entire first fight was when he had Pereira backed up to the fence. Once he got him there, he baited out some of his counters, and he landed 2 really good shots. But here in this fight, the biggest difference was, you know, yes, Pereira would get backed up when Jiri came forward, but then Alex this time was not afraid to step in the pocket and try to land his own strikes, and he was having a lot more success doing it. You know, because he was looking to be a lot more offensive, Jiri had to be a lot more careful because he knew he was going to get stung. You know, Jiri is so dangerous, so wild on the outside, but Pereira in the pocket, you know, obviously is the more cleaner striker, of course, and I think that's something that Alex added to his game plan for this fight, and it worked beautifully. I mean, you see here, right, Jiri moves forward with strikes, Alex backs up, and then as soon as Jiri's done, this time Pereira stepped in hard and landed a good shot. And because Pereira was continuously landing, because he was hurting Jiri, he was a lot more timid, a lot more tentative, and it just allowed Alex's offense to continue to build. You know, it all came to a head when he landed a clean check left hook right as Jiri was coming in, drops him. He had him hurt really, really badly. And then lands a high kick off of his lead leg, which usually his high kicks are going to be off the back leg, but he kind of did a bit of a switch and then threw it off the front, which caught Jiri off guard, knocked him out, and now, you know, this is where it gets scary for Pereira. The last guy, I mean, it's Magomed Ankalaev now. I mean, there's nobody else. He's beaten everybody, unless, of course, he wants to move up the heavyweight and maybe fight John Jones. Or, I mean, maybe Israel Adesanya after DDP, if he wins, will step up to 205. But apart from that, it's time for Alex to face the final boss at 205. And that's a fight I'm nervous about. I can't lie.